Hello, everyone. Welcome to CFO IQ. I'm your host, Andy Zezas. I'm so glad you can join us today. On today's show, I'll speak with two highly accomplished senior finance executives, each of whom possesses substantial experience from having served at great companies. Both companies are based here in the U.S., specifically in the Northeast. Most importantly, the executives joining me today are not only very accomplished senior finance executives, but they're also my friends. So as you can imagine, I'm quite excited about today's show and the conversations we'll have. Joining me today are Talia Griep of Benjamin Moore and Mila Tartakovsky of Daiichi Sankyo. Let me give you some background on both companies. Benjamin Moore is an American manufacturer of paints, stains, and other architectural coatings. The company was founded in 1883 in New York and is currently headquartered in Montvale, New Jersey. Daiichi Sankyo is a major Japan-based global pharmaceutical company, ranking as the second largest in Japan, with a strong focus on oncology and a pioneering focus on antibody-drug conjugates. Daiichi Sankyo was founded in 2005 with roots back to 1899 and maintains its North America headquarters in Basking Ridge. Today I'm joined by Talia Griep, Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer and Chief Financial Officer at Benjamin Moore, and Mila Tartakovsky, Vice President of Finance, Regional CFO at Daiichi Sankyo, Inc., North America. Talia and Mila have both appeared in CFO Intelligence magazine stories, and Mila has appeared with us previously here on CFO IQ. Talia, Mila, it's wonderful to have you here on CFO IQ. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Andy, it's wonderful to be here. I really appreciate the invite, and I love talking with you and Mila.
Nice to be here as well. Looking forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you, ladies. It's going to be a great discussion. Today, we're here to talk about an interesting title, CFO as Role Model. So why don't we jump right into our discussion? So Mila, let's start with you. In your experience, does a single leadership style exist that you found is most successful in the corporate enterprise?
That's a great question. I don't believe that single leadership style exists in general. I believe that leadership style depends on the situation, on the team, on the company, also on the maturity of the leader. I certainly know that my leadership style has evolved over time significantly. When I started as a leader in an organization, I thought that a leader needs to have all of the answers. And as I grew as a leader, as I worked more with my teams, I learned to trust my teams, and I learned that my leadership style is not to have answers, but empower my team to come with the answers through conversations, through discussions, through empowering the team members to grow and learn on their own. So right now, my leadership style is being curious, confident, and compassionate. I try to be curious and ask a lot of questions. I try to be compassionate and understand what's going on, and not just with the business, but also with my team members, and confident in decisions that we make.
3 C's: curious, confident, and compassionate. I love that. Talia, what are your thoughts on that topic?
I couldn't agree with Mila more. I mean, I think that you have to morph your leadership style to meet the needs of the individual you're supporting and the situation. And it can be authoritarian or authoritative if that's what's required. If it's an emergency, you have to act immediately. But certainly the best outcomes, as Mila pointed out, are when you can be collaborative and get multiple viewpoints and bring them to bear to a situation. You're always going to get a better result.
I think I agree with that completely. Talia, let me stay with you then. What's been, in the same vein, what have been your most successful efforts in navigating what I'll call executive presence in the companies you've served?
So my best experiences in executive interactions are when you're with people who are very confident, very self-assured, and very knowledgeable, because then they have nothing to prove. They're going to share their expertise, and it's going to be a nice collaborative interaction. It's not always the case when you have somebody who is trying to prove something, and it's less about the situation or the result and more about them.
Mm, mm. Tell you, does a gap exist in the demonstration of confidence versus how executives are perceived?
I think the two go very closely together. I think the more competent someone is, the easier it is for them to be successful and lead. It's not always the case. I mean, there's certainly highly, highly competent people who have difficulty leading, but competency is certainly a crutch along the way.
Mila, what are your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree more. I think executive presence, it comes from internal confidence. I think as we mature, as we grow, as we build our confidence, and we feel that we don't have to prove ourselves, right? It's just naturally comes out and comes across, and I think our partners, our business partners, and our teams can feel that. I completely agree with Talia. I think perceptions and confidence are very closely related. And if we stop worrying how we are perceived, I think that's when the confidence comes out even more.
I would say, at the very least, we appear to be more confident when we stop worrying about perception. And if we appear to be more confident, then we're viewed with greater confidence and we're able to accomplish more. Wouldn't you agree?
Completely agree. And I think it's not the arrogance, it's just internal confidence, even in saying, I don't know, right? And it's that vulnerability and confidence being vulnerable in front of your teams and in front of the business.
Or even just say, oh, is my expertise. Let me rely on your expertise, which is different than mine.
Say that again. I want to make sure I understood that.
I was just saying, you feel confident to say, this is my area of expertise and I'm going to share that. But I realize you have a different area of expertise and I'm going to rely on that.
I love that approach. I love that approach. Now, I've known both of you to be very focused on the idea of mentorship and growing the people who are coming behind you. So, Mila, let's stick with you for a moment. How do you see mentorship versus sponsorship? And how have they moved your career and the careers of others behind you?
I think both are important and they're very different. You can have mentors who are sponsored. You can have sponsors within the organization that are just see you, that don't have very close interaction with you, but see you and are willing to help prepare you or help speak on your behalf in front of the other leaders. I think mentorship is very different. However, it assumes that you have trusting relationship with someone, and this someone is really serves as a sounding board, as a sharing their experiences, helping you navigate certain challenges. And I think both are truly important. And I've had both, and I really grateful to my sponsors and my mentors.
Talia, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with Mila, which is not a surprise. I think we agree on most things. I've had both, and I've been both. And I think they're very, very important to your career. Whether you just are not going to be as successful unless you have people who you can turn to give you some hard facts and areas that you need to work on, and also help pave the way for you along your chosen path, or a path you're not even sure you wanted to go down, but they give you the opportunity to try it.
Mm, very, very interesting. So both of you have shared with me in previous conversations and actually in our discussions at CFO Intelligence about balancing family life and so on. And I know it's been very important to both of you. How, Talia, let's start with you. How have you succeeded in balancing the really important stuff that's as important, in many cases more important than your career, balancing family life, personal matters, while you're balancing the demands of your C-suite role?
Well, I think it's like anything. It's like any project or any activity you have. Sometimes family has to take the priority, and sometimes work takes the priority. It really depends what's going on. When my children were very young, it was easy for me to travel. I had a supportive husband, and I had a full-time nanny helping me. When they were teenagers and teenagers, it required more of my attention and time, and I had to shift my focus from work to them. And then as they got older, I could shift my attention back to work. I think it's just, and that's true from not only year to year, but day to day. It depends what's going on, what needs your focus.
I think it also has a lot to do with letting your family know what the demands are of your career and where your priorities are, respecting that your family is, one of your most important priorities. But having a family that's part of your team, so to speak, that really gets the fact that you're pulled in many directions, and irrespective of what may be happening on a particular day or point in time, that so long as they know where your real priorities lie, and then participating with you in permitting you to do what you need to do. I think that becomes very important.
Yeah, totally. I mean, certainly your family needs to know that if they need you, you come first. Right. That has to be a sacrosanct position. But on a day-to-day basis, things are fluid.
Yeah, I can agree more. Mila, what are your thoughts?
I agree with everything that both of you said. I'll just add that it's important to have a really strong support network. I think support network at work is extremely important. Support network at home, right? As Talia mentioned, I have a similar situation that my husband and my mother have helped me significantly um, in my career, right? By stepping in when they needed with my girls. I have two young adults now, but when they were growing up, we certainly shared the responsibilities, and when we take them to certain practices, when we go to certain performances, etc., etc. And I think at work, it's important to share um, with your team that you're also a human, a mother, and a wife. And I think it's important to the team to actually see you as a human uh, and a leader, right? That at certain points you say, this is an important period for me, for my family, and I need to be able to rely on you and trust you that you will step up and you will let me know when you need my help. And that absolutely served me well in both family and at home and at work.
Well, I guess it's about communicating with both teams, your team at work and your team at home. I would also imagine that in seeking that understanding from your, what I'll call your work team, it's important that you also communicate to them that you recognize that they also have two teams, a work team and in maybe a family team, or what we'll call an outside of work team, because whether it's a family or something or some other personal kind of team. So I think communicating as the senior finance executive to your team that not only do you expect that of them, but you offer that to them, I think that goes a long way.
I think it really resonates when we do what we say. So when I tell my team it's important to take vacations and recharge, disconnect and recharge, I need to show that. So when I take vacations, I don't respond to emails, and I tell my team I will not respond to emails because they see me not doing that, and they understand that they are allowed to do the same.
Right. Right. I think that's great. Let's turn to more of a technical issue. Let's talk about compensation. What's been share with me some of the more effective means of negotiating compensation, specifically when you're at the top of your game in a senior finance role?
I think it's a very good question, and it's a very important one. I don't think that at this level, the conversation about the compensation should be a surprise. I think it needs to start long before, right? It's a discussion between you and between me and my senior leaders about the value that I bring to the organization and about uh, just transparency on what the compensation marketplace looks like. So when it comes to the compensation actually planning, it should not be a surprise to me or to my manager what the expectations are, right? I think it should be an ongoing process, an ongoing discussion of what I'm bringing to the table, what my opportunities are, what I'm working on, and what the team is working on.
Mm. Talia, would you agree or disagree with that approach?
I totally agree. I think the time to discuss compensation is part of what you're planning on delivering. So if I deliver these 4 things or these 5 things, what would my compensation look like? If I'm able to do this, what is the outcome? And then as you perform the tasks, then you know both sides know what to expect. You deliver, you receive.
Mm. And at your levels of experience, both of you pretty much know going into that conversation what that answer should be. Talia, you and I have talked about some number of issues over the years, and we both recognize that more and more females are taking on the role of senior finance executives. How do, given that role was predominantly, or I should say historically, male dominated, when it comes to things like risk, how do male and female executives approach risk differently, specifically in the CFO role?
I actually think we approach risk the same. I think people approach risk from where they are coming from. So, if you're earlier in career, you're less sure, um, you might be more inclined to take on risk or less inclined to take on risk. It can go either way. Um, as you feel more comfortable in your role, you're much more measured in risk taking. You're not certainly not going to gamble because the risk reward ratio isn't there. Um, and you're going to take on a more measured approach. So I really think it's not male or female. I think it's where you are and what level of risk you're willing to assume.
I find that it's a very interesting. Mila, do you agree that risk is not a male female issue, or do you have a different opinion?
I completely agree. Risk is not a male-female issue. I agree with Talia. It's a matter of maturity. It's a matter of confidence, right? We spoke about confidence earlier in the conversation. I agree that I still think that risk is a matter of confidence. I've seen great leaders and confident leaders give a lot more consideration to risk and not just from a financial perspective, right? We're talking about CFOs, but great CFOs don't just think about financial risk or financial aspects of risk. I think they start thinking about operational, reputational, ethical components, right? And I think taking all of that into consideration when we make decisions.
That makes an awful lot of sense. So we keep hearing these 2 letters that we're being told will affect every aspect of business and every function. AI, 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 AI. You can't, you can't go anywhere without hearing about AI. Delis are trying to figure out how to deploy AI these days. And truly the intent is for AI to be, that reshaper of pretty much everything we do in business, including finance. So Talia, let me ask you, where are you as a finance executive deploying AI within your finance organization? And in your mind, is it Is it a proven technology, or are you still skeptical?
Well, I think AI for certainly large data sets, translation of information from different languages. I mean, there's some very proven use cases that we deploy. Um, there are some areas, where judgment is required, where I think AI is less certain. But we're using AI to help us analyze large data sets. So instead of looking at maybe the top 10 risks, we can look at the top 20. I think wherever you have a large data set, you can deploy AI to help hone what you look at.
So you're not skeptical at this point. You think it's a technology that's worth pursuit.
Yeah, I mean, do I think it at this point can do walk and talk and has legs? Um, no, but do I think it can crawl along? Yes.
Love the analogy. Mila, what are your thoughts?
I will say that as an organization, we're very early in the AI adoption. However, as a leader, I'm quite ambitious. I think it's again, speaking to Talia, right? Is it ready for us, or are we ready to use it everywhere? No. Is it ready to be used everywhere? Everywhere? Probably not. But I think we still don't understand the full capabilities of the AI technologies quite yet. However, 2 years ago, we probably spoke about AI maybe once every couple of weeks. Now there is not an hour goes by that we don't speak about AI. So I think that it's moving very fast. And again, think about it just as a tool. 20, 30 years ago, we talked about internet as a tool, or it's going to be transformational. I think AI will be transformational. I think it's an important tool for the companies to start investing. We certainly have ambitious goal as an organization to invest in AI. At the same time, I think a lot of people are very nervous about, is it going to take my job? And I think as leaders, we have a responsibility to bring our teams along, to educate, to elevate the capabilities, to learn AI tools and actually see how it's going to be used.
I think that's. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say, if I may, I love movies, and I think one of the my favorite movies is Hidden Figures. Do you know that one? Right?
Yeah.
And it's the setting is NASA, and they're bringing the IBM machine, and there is a female group of female human calculators, and now their jobs are going to go away because they're bringing an IBM machine. So the leader of the team is actually takes it upon herself to teach them the coding language. So I think that's the job of a leader.
I love the analogy. I also love the phrase, it can't walk and talk, but it can crawl. I think that's great. Actually, having recently done some research, we realized that we identified that in some data that we looked at, one of the first applications of AI occurred with the U.S. government in the 1950s. They started to apply artificial intelligence, which threw me for a loop when I read that. So let's talk about the growth and the future of finance. And Mila, I'll start with you. Whether you want to speak for your company or companies in general, how do we build the next, with everything that's going on, how do we build the next generation of finance leaders? And male, female, doesn't really matter, but what are the next steps given some of the things we've talked about?
I think finance has been evolving, or finance professionals have been evolving from being the controlling organization, focusing on financial controls, the numbers, accuracy of transactions, and accuracy of bookkeeping, to operational, looking at process efficiencies, reporting, budgeting. And now we're moving towards strategic, more role of a catalyst for the organization, right? And I think it's important with the new technologies and new tools, we need to elevate our game and not just be the reporting and focused on the performance, but really focused on how do we bring the financial insights to decision making more and more. And I think it's also so the financial acumen is absolutely a must. I think understanding the business environment, the competitive environment is extremely important. But for me, I think one of the key skills is communication and ability to tell a story with the numbers. Because we're coming to the business leaders that maybe are not as comfortable understanding the story behind the numbers. An ability to convert that to a story is extremely important.
Wow, that makes an awful lot of sense. Talia, what are your thoughts?
I think when you're developing the next generation of finance leaders, I think it's really important that they try a whole bunch of different types of projects. To Mila's point, it's not enough to be able to do finance and accounting. They really need to know the business. And the only way to learn the business is to work with the business on a whole bunch of different hairy projects. And by doing that and stumbling and, having to make corrections, that's really how they develop and really prepares them for the next levels.
So it's really about training finance leaders to get out of finance and get into operations and really get into understanding the very foundational aspects of the business and then being able to tell that story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense. So there's lately there's been this discussion a lot in a lot of C-suites about the idea of imposter syndrome. And when I heard it discussed at the C-suite level, I found that to be fascinating. Do you believe that in the C-suite, imposter syndrome is real? And if so, does it ever go away? Talia, let's start with you.
I do think that there are people who suffer from imposter syndrome, and if you're going to try and espouse that you are expert or know a whole bunch of things that you don't know, then you're going to feel that pressure. If you're more vulnerable and allow yourself to express what you do and don't know, I think you can get past it.
Mila, what are your thoughts?
I will say that I think throughout my career, I certainly had situations when I experienced imposter syndrome. I think, as Talia said, the more you get comfortable with saying, that's okay not to know something, that's okay not to have an answer, and you get comfortable with that vulnerability and saying, I need to rely on my team, the more confident you become in your space and in your role. So I think all of the leaders throughout the career have had experience of imposter syndrome, but we are able to get through that.
You believe it's something that can disappear, that you can grow out of?
There probably will be situations that I haven't experienced or haven't dealt with before where I will start, brings a level of anxiety. How can we get through this? But I'm sure that I know internally that I will.
I think to Mila's point, Andy, it's less about imposter than anxious in a situation.
That's interesting. Go ahead. Talk a little more about that.
And just feeling comfortable to, not know. And when you can feel comfortable to just say, I don't know that, you actually feel less of an imposter.
I love that. I love that approach. I don't know. I don't, you know what? There's a lot of people who are afraid to say, I don't know. And I think as an executive, going back to some of the things we said earlier in this discussion, having the confidence to be able to say, I don't know, I think goes a long way. And I think that that shows a stability and a transparency that I'd like to see more of. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me. This is I've enjoyed this conversation a lot, and we're coming down to the end. I have one last question for both of you. Given that you've both had extensive careers, you've both accomplished a lot as finance executives, and you both work for phenomenal companies. What what would be your recommendation to most finance executives, respecting that it's probably different each time, in terms of the best post CFO role approach? Is it join boards? Is it hang a shingle and go into fractional and interim work? Or is the best approach to just say goodbye and travel?
I think it certainly depends on the personal passion. That's my thought. I think I've seen a lot of people that go and start teaching, others go and join boards. And I think it's really a time to step back and do a self-reflection on what do I really want to do. I've had a successful career, and what's next? Do I want to step back and travel? Do I want to step back and spend most of the time, dedicate my time to my family? Or do I want to continue giving back in a different way? And I think it's a personal choice.
Hmm. Talia, what do you think?
I couldn't agree more with Mila. I think it is a very personal choice. I think the key is to just be engaged in whatever you do next. Whatever it is, like, learn and really just be engaged in it. Whether it's travel, abroad, teaching, taking classes, whatever it is, be a full member and engaged in it.
And I think you've both brought up some other points: teaching, helping others in other fashion, maybe become going on to not-for-profit organizations and doing charitable works. One of the things that I've experienced with finance executives is a need to recognize that, irrespective of the ultimate decision as to what you'll do post CFO role, that it's really, really important to recognize that it will require a major change, not only in your schedule, but in from an emotional perspective. And I think back to one particular CFO who was with a company for decades and said to me, the nature of their corporate parent is that at 65, it's time to retire and you don't have a choice. And he told me this a year before. And I said to him, have you prepared for the emotional aspect of such a significant change in your life? Because for 40 years, you've worked 60 hours a week and you've been in demand and pulled and pushed. And you're not going to get close to that a bit at a time. It's probably going to get more intense as you run up to your retirement date, and then it's over. So on Tuesday, you'll wake up and have no place to go. And he said, boy, I never thought about the emotional aspect of that. And then as he got closer to it, he said to me, I'm starting to feel anxiety. And a few months after his retirement, he called me and said, oh my gosh, I wasn't prepared. And he's a pretty balanced guy. And he said, I wasn't prepared for the emotional change that I had to go through, going from 60 hours a week to zero. So whatever path you take, I think it's essential to recognize that it's a major change after having a hardworking, successful career. And there are emotional aspects as well as timing aspects and everything else. So, but I do agree. I do think it's, as both of you have very eloquently said, it's a personal decision. Whether you want to keep giving or give back or do something different or dedicate to family or dedicate to charities, or some combination. Well, I got to tell you, this has been a great conversation. I can't say how much I appreciate both of you in terms of your candor and your willingness to come on camera and share these thoughts. This has been quite an impressive conversation. Thank you very, very much, Mila and Talia, for joining me here on CFO IQ.
Thank you for having us.
Always a pleasure.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. And to our audience, I want to thank you very much for joining Mila Tartakovsky of Daiichi Sankyo, Talia Griep of Benjamin Moore, and me here today on CFO IQ. If you'd like to know more about CFO IQ, if you have a topic that you'd like us to explore, or if you're interested in becoming a guest on CFO IQ, visit us at www.cfoiq.com. I look forward to seeing you again.
For booking inquiries, please visit cfoiq.com or email andrew.zezas@cfointel.com.